So this kit for young quilters is to make these really fun. They're actually pens or pencils, going to depend what you get in your kit. You can swap it out if you like. Tulips, look at these. So they're very easy to make. You can sew them by hand and you've got everything in the kit. All you're going to need to add to make these, you're going to get the felt for the stem of the tulip around your pen or pencil. You're going to get the pre-cut leaf as well, and you're going to get a piece of fabric. If you wanted to make any more of these afterwards, just check the measurements before you actually start, and you can always make some more. I measured this basically by measuring the pen that I wanted to cover, and it's only it's 3 centimeters wide by the length, because I wanted it to be a pretty tight, a snug fit basically. It will slide, you can slide it on and off, so if you wanted to put it on a different pen or pencil when that one runs out, then you can. Okay, so we've got, that's going to be for the stem, then we've got the leaf as well, and then this little bit of fabric which is 9 centimeters across here by 13, and we've already helped you out here by pressing under that top 1 centimeter. Okay, and that's quite important to have that there so that you get a nice neat finish. You'll realize why when we actually get to the top of the tulip here. What you're going to need is to supply some cotton, green preferably, a needle, make sure it's one that you can actually thread, and then some scissors. Okay, if you haven't done any sewing before, then maybe get a grown-up to help you, maybe sit and watch this video with you and they can help you out. So why don't we get started? So I've threaded up my needle and I've got a double lot of cotton on here so that it's going to be nice and strong, and the first thing I want to do is tie a knot in the end. Now you can do it that way. I think some of you might know that way of doing it, where you just tie it around your finger. One of the easiest ways is what's actually called a quilter's knot, where you hold the needle between your thumb and your second finger, and then you lay the thread on your first finger, put the needle on top of it, and then with this hand I'm going to wrap it round 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to pinch with the thumb and the finger on this hand and then push it up. Keep pinching, keep pinching, keep pinching, and you end up with a knot in the end. Worth practicing that one because it's such an easy way to tie a knot. Everyone will be super impressed if you can do that one. So I'm going to start sewing this on, and I found the easiest way was to actually hold it around the pencil. Because I've got the knot, I can just do a couple of stitches at the very beginning just to get me started, and then I'm going to start bringing in the other side, and I'm just over sewing. You can do a blanket stitch here if you want, but I think with felt over sewing sometimes, so you're just literally going from side to side. I just want to get those ends tucked in out of the way because they're annoying, aren't they? There we go. And this is why it's quite important for that felt to be just big enough. Okay, and then I can just stitch all the way along this stem, so it's nice and simple to do because I'm just going side to side. And you notice I haven't got a long piece of cotton here. I think it's easier, you get in less of a pickle with knotting and things if you have a slightly shorter bit. I'll show you how to finish it and then start again in a minute. Don't leave it until you've got absolutely no thread at all for finishing off. I would always say leave yourself probably a finger's worth. So I'm just going to do a couple more stitches. There we go. I'm holding my needle, that'll do me. And then you do a couple of little stitches, but on the spot in exactly the same place. And then on the third one, as I come through, I'm going to actually take my needle through that loop and then pull it. And that's knotted that off. So I can then snip that. So I joined that thread in halfway along. Same way I made that knot in the end of my doubled thread. And then I've got to the end and I'm going to finish off in the same way, 3 little stitches on the spot, and then the last bit I'm going to come through that loop, and then I can snip it. So that's the stem done. And if you get a good match on your thread, and just try and keep your stitches as even as possible, I'm going to attach the leaf. So I need to knot. So again, here we go. I've got it thumb and second finger. I'm going to lay it on my first finger, lay the needle over, 1, 2, 3, pinch it, and then pinch, 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 all to the end. There we go. And I'm going to put the knot on the underneath here. And then start sewing. And again, I'm still just doing over sewing. Nice thing is with felt is because it's a little bit fluffy, what you'll find is that your stitches tend to sort of bury inside it, so it's quite forgiving if you're not very, very neat, so don't worry about it. So I'm just stitching up the side here so that my leaf is on. And again, when I get to the end, 3 little stitches on the spot. That's for my third. There we go, through the loop and pull it. And what I'm going to do this time, because I don't really want any threads, I'm going to put my needle in and then just bring the thread back through so that the thread comes out down here, so it's inside hiding, and then I can snip that nice and close. So I've got a nice dangly leaf on my pen there. So the next thing we need to do is actually make the top of our tulip. So before we sew this bit for our tulip, what I'm doing is I've marked it in 4 equal places. It's 3. I've divided it into 4 basically. It's about 4 centimeters, and then I've just made a little mark with my pencil. So you can do that, measure it, or you could just fold it in half for that one and then fold it in half again for the other 2. Those little marks are going to really help when we come to doing this part of the process in a minute. So do you remember I said that this top bit has been ironed over? This is going to be the actual top of our tulip. So I'm going to start here, because what I want to do is sew all the way down here. If you have a sewing machine at this point, you could do this on your sewing machine, but I'm going to do it by hand. So I'm going to start a little way in, about 1/2 centimetre for my first stitch, so that the knot isn't right at the top here. And then I'm going to just take a little stitch over the top, flip it over because my thread is up the top here, and then I can start doing my back stitch. And by back stitch I mean I take a two stitches, 1 in, 1 out, and then I go back and I fill that gap, and then I come up where that stitch finished. So again, I'm going to take 1 stitch, 2 stitch, so that stitch there fills that gap, So can you see there's no gap there now in the first one. The gap is now here. So I'm going to fill that gap and then bring it up there, and then take the next stitch and then the next stitch, and you carry on doing that all the way down. If you find that a little bit difficult to do, one of the easiest ways to do it is actually just do like a running stitch all the way down, and then turn around and fill all the gaps. Do the same, do a running stitch coming back, so you fill all those gaps. We just want to make sure that when we put that stuffing in, there aren't big holes, so the stuffing's going to come through the holes. Okay, so I'm just going in. That's my last row. Filled that gap. Got one more gap down the bottom, and then I'm just going to do, to finish it off, I'm just going to over sew at the bottom here, 2 stitches, and then go through that loop. Now I am not going to take this thread off because I need this thread for the next part. If you've run out of thread, just rethread your needle, double thread again, because we need it to be quite strong, and a big fat knot in the end, because what we now need to do is we're going to just do a running stitch all the way around the bottom here, about 1/2 centimetre up here, because I want to gather this all up. So I'm just going in and out, and I'm not taking very small stitches, again 1/2 centimetre between each stitch, because can you see, I want to do that, I want to pull that up. So I'm going all the way around the bottom of the tulip. There we go. You don't have to pull it tight straight away. If you can, try not to, because we want to get it onto our stem in a minute. So I'm going all the way back to the beginning, which is that seam, and then I'm going to just fold my leaf out of the way because I don't want to catch it. And you notice I've still got that needle hanging there, and 3 centimetres down, so it almost looks like, look, your tulip is wearing a dress. And then I'm going to pull it tight, and then take a stitch through the felt. And at this point, this is all going to be on the inside, so it doesn't matter what it looks like, no one's going to see. And then you can wrap your thread around to hold it a bit tighter, and then again just a couple more stitches just to hold that in place. And this time I'm not really worrying about, I've just about got enough thread there. I should have been able to knot it, but I've got enough stitches in there that that's going to hold that together. Again, that's the sort of thing that it might be useful to get a grown-up to help you with that. You could even put a little bit of glue around there as well to help with that, to hold it in place. So once this is all stitched around here, if you remember, we've got these marks around here which have divided this back seam as the 4th one. Okay, so as we push this up, I'm going to put my little blob of stuffing and then pull this up over the top, and look, that's going to give us our sort of tulip shape, and push this down so it sits underneath that fold. Then I've got my needle and thread. Again, I've doubled it so it's nice and strong, and there's a knot in the end. So the first place I'm going to stitch is in the seam, and I'm going to do a couple of stitches there, and then I'm going to push the wadding down a bit more. The first one is this one here. I can see I'm going to squash that down so it's nice and neat, all those ends and bits of where the seam is. A couple of stitches there to hold that down. They're practically on the spot, and then if I turn it, I can put my needle in this one here, and I'm only a couple of millimeters, look, from the top, but as I pull that, it pulls that into the middle where the others are, and then I can see that other one pull the whole thing together, and then give it a good squish like that. And while I'm squishing it, I can then do another couple of stitches to hold that. So I'm doing those 3 finishing stitches here. So the third one, I'm going to go through the loop and pull it tight. And look, this is the top of my tulip. And then I'm going to poke it inside the tulip and the stuffing and bring it out there. I'm not pulling it tight because I've already knotted it off here, but it means that I can snip that, give that a little squish, and then there's no end. You can't see the end anywhere. And that's my tulip done.